Religious freedom is a human right. In fact, it goes to the heart of what it means to be human, to think freely, to follow our conscience, to change our beliefs if our hearts and minds lead us to do so, to express those beliefs in public and in private. And so our promise to the world is that the Biden-Harris administration will protect and defend religious freedom around the world. We will maintain America's long-standing leadership on this issue.
That was Secretary of State Anthony Blinken at the release of the State Department's 2020 report on international religious freedom. Here to discuss that report is the former Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, Sam Brownback. Ambassador, thank you for being here. I want to get your thoughts on Secretary Blinken's presentation of that report this week. The report landed at the same time as that major conflict broke out in Israel, and it got lost in the shuffle of events. From Blinken's remarks, it sounds like the new administration is committed to defending and promoting religious freedom. Is that the impression you got after reading the report?
It is the impression I've gotten. It's the impression that I've had. You know, there's been this kerfuffle about, the Trump administration had put it as a foundational human right, as a primary human right, and they're saying, well, it's amongst the panoply of human rights. But you listen to this report, you listen to the presentation, you see the actions. They cited another Chinese official and took his visa rights away because of persecution of Falun Gong. They're acting in favor of religious freedom.
Good. Okay. We should also mention that the former ambassador at large, you have no successor. No replacement has been named by the State Department. Now, earlier this month, several members of Congress, four from the House and the Senate, sent a letter to the president calling for a nomination of a new ambassador at large to religious freedom. Why do you think they haven't filled your post, given the rise in global persecution we're seeing?
Yeah, it takes some time. I wasn't announced in the Trump administration until July. And then I got hung up in the Senate amongst my old colleagues. I didn't get through until February of the next year. So this takes a little bit of time, but I think it is time now to start pushing on the administration to do something here. We've just got so many problems of religious persecution. The genocides taking in place in the world today have as their root often, most cases, because of a religious persecution like the Uyghurs or Muslims in China that the Chinese are pushing out. So they need somebody in this role because of the centrality of what religious issues and the religious conflict and the religious persecution is taking place now.
Well, this drives so many of these conflicts we're seeing globally. Blinken singled out in the report a number of countries of concern: Iran's harsh treatment of religious minorities, ethnic cleansing in Burma, the persecution of Christians and Muslims in Russia. Here's what he had to say about Saudi Arabia and China. Watch.
Saudi Arabia remains the only country in the world without a Christian church, though there are more than 1 million Christians living in Saudi Arabia. And China broadly criminalizes religious expression and continues to commit crimes against humanity and genocide against Muslim Uyghurs and members of other religious and ethnic minority groups.
Why has there been so little progress opening up Saudi Arabia to non-Muslim houses of worship, Sam?
Yeah, that's been a tough one. And I worked on it. Other people have. Our big hope has been because of the UAE's opening taking place. And they invited Pope Francis there, and he spoke the first time a papal visit ever took place on the Arabian Peninsula. We were hoping that as UAE opened up, that the Saudis would open up. And that's the sort of comment you get privately from officials. But they still haven't done it. They cite difficulties there in doing it, but they could. They historically did have churches in the past. During the times of Muhammad, they had churches there. They can have churches there now. They just haven't done it, but it's time. The Saudis really need to move forward. And with 1 million Christians there, they've got a demand for churches.
Mm-hmm. You heard the mention of the Uyghur genocide in China. Does Blinken in this report go far enough to chronicling what is actually happening in China, vis-a-vis the persecution of Christians, the Catholic Church imprisonment of priests and bishops, and Catholic laymen like Jimmy Lai and others?
They go pretty far. I think it could go further, and it just keeps escalating. Is the problem in China? It's not as if the Chinese Communist Party has been caught red-handed in their war on faith, and they're now kind of shrinking away from it. They've been caught red-handed, and they're proud of it, and they just keep pushing it and keep tightening things down, and so more and more keeps coming out. The forced abortions of minority people of faith that's taking place that's come out. This use of artificial intelligence and a creation of a virtual police state where people of faith are monitored and tracked all the time and given a social credit score. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger in China. They are the ones that are perfecting the systems of the future, I'm afraid, for religious persecution, and then they're going to export them around the world.
Yeah. As a former ambassador at large for religious freedom, what do you think is missing from this report? I know you've read it extensively.
I don't think that there's much missing from it. The report is really meant to chronicle the things that took place last year. If anything's missing, it's because the year was under lockdown most of the time, and so most of it's reporting on reporting rather than direct, okay, we saw this or we met with that group, because there weren't a lot of meetings that took place. But it's a good chronicle. It's generally considered the gold standard around the world for what's taking place in religious persecution. And I think you can get a lot out of this report.
Yeah, and we are seeing Lord David Alton in England and reactions in other parts of the world really galvanizing support around human rights and calling out this religious persecution, particularly the Uyghur internment in China. That's a good sign, and much of that is the result of your work and the work of the Trump administration, before the Biden folks came in. You will be co-chairing an International Religious Freedom Summit in D.C. this July. What do you hope to achieve with this event?
Really getting the grassroots movement pulling together, galvanizing it, and then pressing forward. The religious freedom movement needs to go from really the elite levels in government, and it needs to get in the grassroots. It needs to be a movement where people every day are saying and pushing themselves, I deserve this right to do with my own soul as I choose. So what we hope to do is to bring together a lot of the leaders of religious freedom from around the world, and then get them introduced to each other, building relationships so that we can press this movement on forward. We've got about 60 convening partners, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, Notre Dame Law School, amongst them a number of other groups from various religious groups, all coming together not around a common theology, because we don't agree on theology. It's around a common human right, and this has got to be driven and more effectively at the grassroots level.
Great. Sam Brownback, thank you for being here. You can find out more about that International Religious Freedom Summit at irfsummit.com. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thanks, Raymond.